Hello, everybody. Today I'm reviewing an album I should have taken a look at long ago, Lee Hinkle's Modern American Percussion Concerti. 3 percussion concerti by Maurice Wright, Stephen Stucky, and Evan Ziporyn, all performed by Lee Hinkle with various ensembles. The album is released by Ravello, which is a nice label for recording new percussion projects. I have a lot of friends and know a lot of ensembles that have used this label. Percussion concerti can encompass a wide range of compositional styles, so I'm really looking forward to seeing what these have in store for me. The album gives a tagline of, "Whether on marimba, drum set, or any percussive tool between, Hinkle shines solo in the 7-year culmination of a monumental musical undertaking coming together as Modern American Percussion Concerti." As always with new releases, we will be balancing judging the compositions alongside evaluating the soloist's performance, along with smaller details of recording production and ensemble performance. I'm relatively familiar with Lee Hinkle as a performer. We share an alma mater, and I've had the pleasure of seeing him perform on several occasions. And I have a lot of confidence in his ability to communicate as a soloist. It's a really great album cover. I wish my album cover looked that cool. The percussive imagery alongside nature mixed in the photo is really striking. Very nice album art. So the first piece is a marimba concerto, Maurice Wright's Concertpiece for Marimba and Orchestra. I know nothing about this piece. Let's dive in. Movement 1. Good to start with the marimba right away. Marimbists don't look good waiting during the exposition. This material right away sounds very middle movement. I had to check that I wasn't in the wrong movement of the piece. It sounds like it's all 2 mallets, but the material is a little bit Bartók or maybe Prokofiev, a little bit serialism. Several minutes into listening to this first movement, I noticed the only motif I could point out is energetic chromaticism, which I'm not sure really counts. I'm enjoying the quirky and jagged runs with some very lively orchestration. The orchestra fades away and the marimba takes its first solo and provides us with some more incomprehensible leaping motion. Okay. Later on in the piece, I catch on to some of the material. The circular motion becomes more recognizable. Incredible perseverance and energy from the soloist to continuously provide momentum here. Some of the tremolos that the soloist plays just made me think, do rolls just sound cheesy on marimba? Particularly like 2 mallet rolls with harder mallets. That tremolo sound just has an underlying ragtime honky-tonk cheesiness to it that is so hard to avoid. All right, I had nothing to say here. For the most part, I could listen to that movement again and think it was my first time ever hearing it. Make of that what you will. Movement 2. Some challenging and upward stretching sounds from the orchestra, a nice adagio introduction. Now we get some marimba rolls that sound a lot more sophisticated, lower register and harder mallets. I don't find the marimba projection to be great here. I need it boosted in the mix a bit. I love the section around 3 minutes, with the marimba providing a very pianistic accompaniment role to a lovely emotional moment in the orchestra. In movement 3, we open with a very Daphnis and Chloe sound. High interactivity between the marimba and orchestra, which is fantastic. Things then get murky, more rolls, and everyone is playing off each other very well in this movement. Wonderful sound blend. My mind is conjuring up kind of sci-fi film music a bit here in this third movement. This is slightly off topic, but in the first marimba cadenza, a motif is introduced that caught my attention. Because it wasn't a motif, it was just double stops in each hand. But it caught my ear. It was striking because it hadn't been used much at all through the previous 15 minutes of music. Just an interesting thought that with an instrument as foreign as the marimba to the concerto stage, yes, even to me, I have certainly spent more time listening to piano concerti than I have marimba concerti. So introducing something as innocent as a simple, basic new technique can be like a disorienting addition to the material. The marimba really has to be handled with extreme care in a concerto setting. A lot of ideas get cycled through after that cadenza. Hard to keep track. Another marimba cadenza extremely near the end of the piece, but it leads to another burst of interactivity with the orchestra, which is the best success the concerto has had so far compositionally. So overall, for this Maurice Wright concert piece for marimba and orchestra, extremely musical, forward-facing, and impressive playing from Mr. Lee Hinkle on this concerto, in addition to being a virtuosic display of technical endurance, so congratulations to him. The piece has some moments of effectiveness and a vibrance often missing from marimba concerti, but ultimately had way too many disparate ideas for me to keep track of. I feel the piece would have been served better by a much more focused motivic palette. Our next concerto is Stephen Stucky's concerto for percussion and wind ensemble, so a different sonic setup entirely. Movement 1, an engaging call and response, begins this piece, immediately followed by a lovely bird call section with percussive embellishments. A percussion concerto must go through a process of revealing its arsenal to the audience. So far, I've got toms, bongos, log/tongue drum, wood blocks, maybe chimes. Those could be in the percussion section. Very sensitive, dynamic, and well-balanced handling of these instruments from Hinkle. Completely confident through their exposition. Movement 2 adds some metallics into the mix with an incredibly unexpected steel pan. Then the marimba gets some material over lengthy, held, discordant tones in the winds. I've played some Stucky, and boy does he love minor second intervals alongside minor major seventh chords. A lot of unease and suspension in this movement, every now and then a very noir and jazzy. The steel pan was always a little distracting. I'm not sure it ingratiated itself into the ensemble better than a simple vibraphone would have. Movement 3 begins with a very Asteroid City Wes Anderson motif. Xylophone and glockenspiel are added. I'm not sure what, if any of that, is covered by other percussionists versus what the soloist is handling. The vivace hits its stride around 2.5 minutes with some lovely interactivity. I am learning that I value ensemble interactivity quite highly in a percussion concerto. Well done to Hinkle for handling a lot of instruments and making each one sparkle through this third movement vivace. Movement 4. This movement is titled as a tribute to the victims of 9/11, and appropriately, we have kind of a tragic threnody soundscape at the beginning. Notably, this is a 5-movement concerto, so this is not how the whole piece is ending. Our arsenal of percussion instruments is ever expanding here with gongs, tam-tams, larger drums, and almglocken. I'm very tired at this point of hearing a suspension held high in the flutes and clarinets. Wind ensembles don't work as synth pads like string players do. Composers, please don't make me listen to a flute clinging to ledger lines for 1.5 minutes. Luckily, I am rescued by a powerful bass drum statement from Mr. Hinkle and an entry of fanfarious brass into Movement 5. Movement 5 has some lovely call and response between curious percussive sounds and swaggering winds with very motivic rhythms. Interactivity. This returned throughout the movement and was a treat each time. Motivic repetition. After some expansive metallics, the sound palette returns to the Movement 1 instruments, which easily signals the end of the piece as a whole and provides a great wrap-up to an otherwise wide selection of percussion instruments. Overall for this piece, Stucky was a very skilled composer, but I always have to caution that if you include too many instruments, it just becomes a petting zoo, and the player becomes a spectacle of whirling around to find the right mallet, rather than getting to engage in powerful musical expression. As I suspected, I think Lee Hinkle is providing pitch-perfect expositions of these pieces, and I am quite impressed and envious of his ability to do so. His excellence in performing is why I'm really just commenting on and trying to home in on if these compositions work or not. So movements 1 and 5 worked really well, but other movements didn't have much to latch onto, either melodically, rhythmically, or texturally. Our final concerto is Evan Ziporyn's Impulse Control. 2 movements, but they're very lopsided. So movement 1 is only 4 minutes. It begins with a messy collection of snare and toms, with some auxiliary percussion helping along to create a kind of rollicking military feel. This continues to intensify with more sounds added amidst dramatic re-entrances, forming one grandiose fanfare for the piece. What this all means, we have to wait for the second movement to tell us. The second movement is 15 minutes long. A foreboding groove is established with a motivic tom pattern that I will look forward to hear throughout the piece. A very engaging and dense cadenza to start this second movement, but I'm glad we've already had the fanfare to set the tone and exhibit a lot of that arsenal of sounds I've mentioned a few times. 6 minutes into the piece as a whole, we finally hear the wind ensemble with a very subtle and thin, reedy entrance. It seems to be mimicking various non-Western classical wind instruments. I can't think exactly of what it's reminding me of, like a shakuhachi or something, some traditional instrument. It also sounds very Windham Hill, for the record. A ton of very clean hi-hat foot action. Nice job. He's obviously on like a drum set setup. The wind ensemble remains very much in the background for a long time with a tenuous kind of breathing groove, while the soloist continues what seems like a cadenza style of play. Small breaks are punctuated by some strong statements and fills, but overall, it just seems like we're on a very long trajectory towards something. What that something is, I don't yet know. Very slow but inexorable growth as the minutes pass. We don't reach the peak I thought we would, when at around 9 minutes we do get a change in behavior from the soloist and ensemble. This in turn grows into a recognizable rhythmic motif with groovy and intensifying accompaniment, and once again begins to grow in energy. The energy peaks and the dam breaks into a frenetic percussion cadenza. That hi-hat sound is crisp. We get some blast beats on china and snare that lead into a final charming interactivity with the winds. Really great interactivity with the ensemble for complex unison hits, motivic repetition that set up a dramatic and energetic finish. This piece is the most successful on the album. It has a limited amount of material that is utilized in engaging ways. Probably Hinkle's most virtuosic showing as well, a really impressive multi-percussion solo that is practically a moto perpetuo. Phenomenal performance. I want to shout out the decision that was made to have this entire piece be kind of a different dynamic tier. This easily could have overwhelmed the ears, but letting the volume be continuously understated really heightened the intrigue and appeal. Congratulations to Lee Hinkle, and thank you for providing the percussion community with such a valuable recording of 3 Concerti. It was very illuminating for me to listen to what I felt worked versus what was unsuccessful. The soloist performance was 10 out of 10, but due to the lack of success of 2 of the compositions which comprise the majority of the project, which obviously is completely subjective, but, it's my review. The album as a whole drops to a 7 out of 10. No, scratch that. Why did I act like I was giving it a 2 out of 10? It's a 7 out of 10. It's an amazing performance of works that are important to hear. Congratulations, and thank you for this album. Have you listened to this album? Have you played or heard any of these concertos, concertis? What marimba concertos do you like? What marimba concertos do you hate? Concerti. What percussion concerti do you hate? What percussion concerti do you love? I am pretty skeptical of percussion concerti in general, so let me know which ones you think I should review and maybe can break through my icy exterior towards that medium. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you next week.